Welcome back to Paying for Attention, everyone's favorite paid media podcast. Today we're going to be talking about a timely topic, responsive search ads. So I know if you're in the industry, you've probably heard this term a time or two over the last year or so. We're going to give our thoughts on them. We're going to give pros and cons and some tips and tricks. So tune in and enjoy. Joining me today is Keegan Brown, CEO of Megathos, and we're gonna jump right into it. So, Keegan, I think we'll start with pros and cons. Let's just start there. Give our thoughts on what we think are the good and bad of RSAs. Why don't you start with the pros?
Well, I'm going to start with the con.
Go ahead.
The con I'm throwing out there is that we're being forced yet again by Google to do something that we haven't really seen work out as well as what Google, I think, is anticipating. And that's, Google over the years, as every year or so, kind of made a big change. Hey, you need to update to this. You need to be using this type of ad format, or this. This is what's changing with match types. We did match type 1 last year. So I'm going to start with that as a con, that I don't like that we're being forced to do this, and we'll get to the kind of why it hasn't really worked out that well. But just want to throw that out there first.
Yeah, for sure.
But the pro really is that it does help automate the testing of your headlines and descriptions at a massive scale, right? So that's great. Instead of having to write a bunch of different ads and have them 4, 5, 6 different ads in an ad group, now you have 1, maybe 2 responsive search ads with several headlines, several description lines, and Google's kind of testing all of that for you. And that's kind of the first big pro that I saw.
Yeah. So hitting on that a little bit, let me jump back a second. I forgot to mention, if you don't know, these ETAs will no longer be able to be created in your accounts. Expanded text ads, the current or the past format, will no longer be able to be created June 30th. So that's coming right up. So
Or edited,
correct, yes. They'll still run in your account. You'll still be able to pause and unpause, but you won't be able to create new ones. Now, we have some thoughts on that later, but just wanted to point that out. But expanding on your testing at a massive scale, that part is pretty cool. What it's really going to mean is quicker learning. It's basically going to be like adding 2 RSAs in an account with a bunch of good assets. And I'm going to refer to assets here as headlines, descriptions, just to make it easier. Is really going to be like adding 20 ETAs testing against each other in an ad group. And that's kind of cool, really, when you think about it. And then the other piece on that is, well, not only that, but Google's going to optimize the best performing. So I no longer have to go into an ad group and say, well, out of these 20 ETAs, I bet only 5 got volume. And then out of those 5 that got volume, which one actually won? Sometimes it's a little more convoluted, right? It's well, this one has a higher click-through rate, but it has a worse CPA,
right,
and a worse conversion rate. So
that's what I was going to say, right?
Yeah. What
is Google going to be optimizing for?
Yeah. So from what we know right now, it seems like it's click-through rate, and that's we're going to get into what we've seen so far in the next one, but that is jumping right into the cons. That's the biggest con. It's limited learning. Right now, what you can see on an ETA is basically impression volume by ad asset. So you can say this headline got 40,000 impressions, this headline only got 30,000 impressions. Well, I don't really care.
Yeah, right. And maybe one of the assets that had maybe 30% of the total impression volume is really what worked so well that it made that ad much better, right, than maybe another ad. But you don't really know that right now. Google's not telling us that. And I'd imagine that Google, once they kind of force this change down the road, I'm crossing my fingers. I hope Google makes a change to where we can see more. I'd imagine they have to, right?
Yeah.
They're going to have to come up with some more reporting for RSAs to show click-through rates for certain variations.
Yeah. So what they're giving us right now is performance, and it's directional. It's low, good, better, or something like that.
Right.
And so that's kind
Yeah.
of all we have to go off of right this minute in terms of measuring assets against each other. So we have some thoughts on how to deal with that in a little bit, but I think the other big downside is it's what Google's moving to just in general is automation, and
Mm-hmm.
it's taking control out of our hands. You can no longer truly 50-50 split test. Well, I mean, I guess technically you could, but it's just going to be a lot more hoops to jump through to truly 50-50 test one ad against another,
Right.
like we used to in the good old days of 50-50 split testing ads.
Yeah. And I think not only the control, but the confidence that you have within a certain message, like actually outperforming another one, right?
Yep.
Like, even going back 10 years ago when there was not even ETAs, you had one headline, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was very easy to test that against another headline
Yep.
and know for a fact after a certain amount of time that it's this much better than the other one, right? And right now it's just the automation and the scale of testing is great, but you're really starting to take that out of, that knowledge away from marketers that they could use for landing pages, use for paid social or other marketing messaging that was really beneficial at the time and a big part of A/B testing, right? So definitely something that I just don't like.
Yeah, and that leads directly into the last con, which is it's just harder to match relevance.
Mm-hmm.
We love control. We live in a world of control. We are a SCAGs agency. SCAGs still aren't dead, by the way, even with this change. We'll tell you about that in a little bit. But yeah, it's just the entire idea of SCAGs is we know what people are searching in this ad group because we have one keyword in it. That took a turn when Google changed their match types, right? But
Yeah.
that's for another episode. But that aside, we know what they're searching for. We know we have good copy to exactly match to that and a good offer on our landing page to take that home and drive that conversion. Now we kind of just throw 6 to 8 headlines we feel pretty good about and see what happens, see what sticks. Throw stuff at the wall, see what sticks. So that kind of leads into what we're seeing so far. So why don't you take us through kind of just high level what we're seeing in our testing over the past year or so since they've been introduced.
Yeah, and so this is part of the reason why, I'm not a fan of being forced to have to change ad formats, and it's really for our clients' benefit, right? We haven't really been using too much of the RSAs, and we're at this point. Every new client we're bringing on, we're switching to RSA or starting out with just RSAs, and we're switching all of our clients to have at least some RSAs in the account so we can start testing more. But everything that we've seen so far when testing RSAs versus ETAs is we are seeing better click-through rates, which is great. So better click-through rates means better, more clicks. It also typically sees a slightly lower cost per click because the ad is getting a better click-through rate and improving quality score. But the one thing that we can't seem to really get a grasp on is why it has a lower conversion rate. I want to say 90% of tests at least that we've ran in RSAs, we have a higher click-through rate and a lower conversion rate compared to ETAs. And typically what that leads to is a higher cost per conversion or a lower return on ad spend for a client, which is typically the goal that we work with our clients, which is a cost per lead and efficiency and really that's it, right? So it really hurts the efficiency game of optimization by I don't know, matter of 5 to 10% at least, which can make a difference, right? When you're at scale, when you're looking at maybe $100 cost per lead versus with RSA's 110. So that's so far what we've seen, and then making with the limited analysis, making it even more difficult for us to really optimize those RSAs to get that conversion rate back up.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. I don't have a ton to add on what we've seen. Like that's really what I've seen in most of my testing as well. So that does kind of directly lead into the next topic though, which is what do we do about it? Knowing that, what do we recommend and how can you kind of go about testing those in a bit of a conservative way, because it's, in my opinion, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like my ETAs are working just fine. I'm just being forced down this road. So how do I go intelligently go about that? So one of the things we're doing, obviously, is you've seen the feature where you're able to pin assets. That is going to be huge. So using those pins in a smart way in your RSA strategy is going to be the number one key. So for example, at its most simple, the example we've been using is you can test two RSAs against each other by pinning headline one. So it's a traditional headline one test. Just pin one headline one, pin a in one RSA, pin a different headline one in the other RSA, see how they perform against each other. That gives you at least some control of a split A/B test, right? The rest are testing thousands of combinations together, but at least in that case, you're learning. You can at least analyze what's going on with the headline test and make hypotheses just like you used to. Like, I think this headline one is going to outperform this one, and then see what the data says.
Yeah, and in that case, in that scenario, you're recommending basically everything else being exactly the same in the ad, with just the H1s being pinned, and those two are the only difference.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Same exact RSA other than the headline one.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Hopefully, Google doesn't take away pinning, but
yeah.
And then you can also just kind of pin an entire ETA in there, right?
Yep.
You can just basically
it's
manually
kind of a cheating
say,
way.
kind of cheating, but it's if you don't see the results that you're looking for with an RSA, I would say go for it.
Yeah.
Do what's best for your results. Even if Google says your ad quality is poor, if you're getting the results that you're looking for, don't feel the need to have to change and get that ad quality score to be good or excellent for your results to suffer.
100%. And over the years, you likely at least have one ETA you're comfortable with the performance of currently, right?
Mm-hmm.
So using historical data like we should in anything else we do in a Google Ads account, why not pin that exact ETA so that you have that known commodity of the old ETA historically performed, and start there. Then you can test one RSA against it, right? A completely different one.
Mm-hmm.
At least it's a start. And further on that, I mean, I guess just another idea is just to dip your feet into it. Keep your ETAs live, whatever you have in each ad group, and just throw one RSA in there.
Yeah.
You can even have overlapping themes and ideas of your current ETAs. What your best headlines, your best descriptions. Just throw one RSA in there. See what Google does with it. What I'm sure you'll likely see, probably most of the time, is what we've been saying. It's going to steal a lot of the volume because it has so many combos that it's throwing out there, that you're giving Google the control of showing for your ad group, for your keyword. You're going to see probably a higher click-through rate on that, but you might see some performance issues in terms of conversion rate decreasing, and hopefully, like Keegan said earlier on, they'll give us some more data to learn from, and we can actually start to drill into why is conversion rate lower, what pieces of this ETA or of this RSA are performing bad. We can pause certain pieces of the RSA, things like that. So hopefully that's the direction it goes. But for now, we just throw that in there. At least get your accounts up to date so that clients aren't saying, "Hey, I heard about these current ads going away. Why don't you have any of the new ads going on?" Really, the next thing we kind of wanted to talk about are some tips and tricks. I know we kind of talked about testing specific tips and tricks, but what about some just more general ones, Keegan? Do you have one that you prefer over another?
Yeah, I think it kind of goes along with what we've been saying, and not feeling like you have to do exactly what Google says, and it really leads to quality over quantity, and it's and it of course everyone knows that, right? But I feel like even in sometimes our cases, it's like, we have to have 8 different headline examples, right? But really, we'd much rather have 3 or 4 really good headlines or descriptions, than trying to just maximize all the different combinations and having four additional that are just, garbage or just fillers or slightly reworded.
Yeah, that's the big one, reworded.
Yeah, it's
Don't
gonna
do
be
that.
yeah, it's gonna come off very unnatural to the searcher. It's gonna be lower, not as relevant, and it's just not something you want to put your brand out with, right? So, quality over quantity for sure, I think, is the biggest one.
Yeah. My other one, you took it right out of my mouth, was don't simply reword headlines just to throw in new assets, just so that because what you're going to see when you create your first one, if you haven't already, Google's going to say ideally you create 6 to 8. Well,
Yeah.
no, Google, like, I don't have 6 to 8 great ideas.
Yeah.
Just go with your four good ones. Stick with those. The other thing is, on my other biggest tip would be use themes. That is a way that you can get away from the habit of just rewording different benefits as a new headline. Use a different theme completely. So for an e-commerce example, that could be, I'm going to have one price-focused ad because I know my price is better than the competitors. I'm going to have this ad completely about why my price is better than the competitors. Then my other RSA is going to be about selection. I have the largest selection in the industry. So those are two completely different ad ideas. And now you have themes. Now you're testing themes against each other as opposed to individual assets. That's another, I guess, testing idea, right? Is testing themes against each other. You can start to directionally learn what people are preferring, what performs better, because you can't see the performance of the individual assets, but now you know the performance of your themes. You say, well, people are clicking the price one more, but converting better on the selection one. That's interesting, right? That's an interesting learning.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, I think that's something you could currently do with ETAs, but RSAs will help you, as you mentioned, not reword, not just kind of headline and description stuff just to get helps you narrow your focus in, so you can start thinking, oh, this is very price focused, this is very inspirational or emotional focused, right? Then it starts to create more ideas around that theme and be able to fill it with good quality assets for each RSA. So
Cool. Well, that's all we got for you today. Get your accounts up to speed. Get going on that. I hope this gives you some ideas, at least, gets you thinking in the right way. We're still thinking through our strategy, honestly. We're testing different things, and we're going to have fun with it. We're not pumped that Google's taking us in this direction, but we're going to have some fun with it while we can, right? So hope everyone got a couple tidbits they can use in their accounts today, and thanks for joining us for another episode of Paying for Attention, and we'll see you next time.